Everyone, welcome. This is the GTM AI podcast. Episode number 24, where Vince Jeong, the CEO and co-founder of Sparkwise, joins me to talk AI-powered group learning and revolutionizing corporate education. Sponsored by the GTM AI Academy, your go-to source for learning how to use AI in companies, teams, and in your individual workflow. Business impact over learning tools. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. This is Coach K, and I have with me the man who I've come to actually get to know over the last few weeks, and I can tell you I'm just, number one, impressed. Number two, he's like the nicest guy ever. Vince with Sparkwise, the CEO and co-founder, I believe, of Sparkwise. I'm super excited to have you. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, and I want to say the same to you. You've been delightful to get to know. I feel like every time we chat, we feel like we've been knowing each other for a while. So anyways,
I know. I
Yeah.
feel that way too. I have, on a side note, I know this has nothing to do with the podcast. I just wanted to tell you, I have a good buddy of mine who I've known since high school. He was in the band with me for a long time. He's my guitar player. And you remind me a lot of him because just like super laid back, super smart, very conversational, very warm. And so I'm really excited to have you. Your background is like super impressive. Anywhere from the engagement manager, you did AI with McKinsey a long time ago. You're an advisor for a couple of people. And right now, obviously, you're with Sparkwise. Super impressive. And a podcast host. You just barely launched your podcast, which is phenomenal.
Newbie, yeah. Nowhere close to where you are, but learning.
It's coming. I know. It's welcome to the podcast tribe. It's good.
Thank you.
What I'd love to know though is obviously that's all the stuff on LinkedIn, and you and I have talked before, but what I would love to know is the story that's not on LinkedIn. Like, how did you get from going from McKinsey to now being a startup in the crazy AI learning space?
Yeah, so maybe it's worth taking a step back to where I started, which is I'm an immigrant. I was born in South Korea and I moved to Canada when I was 12.
Cool.
And as an immigrant, education and learning are just really fundamental to your life because it's the key to making it, right? And so I think I was naturally primed to really care and work really hard in school. And what I found myself was that passion carried through school and then when I first started my career. So I started my career at McKinsey, and basically my career is half in consulting and half I did international development work in Tanzania and then in Colombia and so on. And cool. I find myself throughout the entire journey doing a lot of stuff around people development, talent development, capability building, organizational development work, right? Basically things around enabling people, and realized by tracing backwards, that was my passion area. So when I was leaving McKinsey at the end of 2020, this was at the height of the pandemic, everything was going virtual. There was a lot of questions around how do we continue to help people develop when we can no longer be in person and create these really immersive environments in real life. And felt like there was an opportunity to dedicate my passion for learning and marry that with what I had learned, and the opportunity being created by the technology and behavior shift that was being induced by the pandemic. And now I think AI is a further accelerant to what we're doing. So it's been an exciting time to be in the field of learning and skill development.
I know from my viewpoint as an enabler and doing things both in person and remotely for years, what I would say, but I'm curious from your viewpoint, what do you think are some of the most valuable things that you used to do in person that then was restricted by remote, and how are you mitigating that gap?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's really the lens through which we've thought a lot about Sparkwise. So if you think about what's really effective about in-person learning, there are probably a couple components. The first and foremost is connection, right? You're there with other people. Humans are social beings. I think when you are surrounded by others, it creates a kind of an environment and energy and desire to push yourself and actually try hard in doing something new and learning. And that is harder to foster in a virtual environment, and I think people struggle with that. And of course, related to that is attention. How do you capture people's attention? If you're in a room, you can't really do other things, right? But when you're on a virtual Zoom, it's very easy for you to multitask. And most modern workers are being bombarded with many different things. So how do you actually get people to focus and pay attention? I think is another sort of challenge. The other thing is when you're in person, it's very easy to do diverse activities, right? Okay, like
Yeah.
go in a group and work on stickies, and then let's come together and let's share it. And there's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of things that you're able to do that change up the modality. When we went virtual in 2020, at first it was, okay, we have Zoom and
And Zoom
everyone
rooms.
at the screen, right?
Yeah.
And fine, we have other tools like Miro or things like that, but it's really hard to facilitate that. It's clunky, people get
Yeah.
lost. And so it's very hard to create the dynamism of learning modality. And so we thought about, okay, how do we really bring these elements to life virtually?
Mhm.
And where can we make it even better than in person? And so I think that's how we've built the platform. It's a group environment. You're learning actively together, seamlessly,
Yeah.
like working on different activities, comparing with each other. It facilitates conversations, hopefully in a way that really creates connections. Anyway,
Mhm.
so that's how we've thought about that problem.
Yeah. That's awesome. I know you took me through a quick demo before, and I saw the demo on your website. So if anyone, it's hard to conceptualize until you see it. Like for me, I was like, I don't understand. But as soon as I saw it, but that's cool. So if anyone's listening does not have an idea, I will make sure I'll include the demo link in the description so people can see it too, because it's freaking awesome. So curious then, let's take the next step then. How you just barely included the AI part of it. How is AI now integrated into the process? What do you use AI for?
Yeah. So there are three different ways we're incorporating AI into our platform, but
Mhm.
before that, it's probably helpful to point out how we think about use of AI.
Cool.
There was a lot of talks around AI and learning like everywhere, right? AI and
Yeah.
anything everyone's talking about,
It's everywhere.
especially
Yeah.
in the learning space as well. And
Yeah.
it feels a very natural way, like application of AI. One way we think about it is, okay, how do people fundamentally learn best? There's a lot of
Mhm.
science around that. There's a lot of research that's been done around that. And I think we are all about how do you use AI to turbocharge that? Um, versus, oh, AI is now possible, let's do things. And for us, one fundamental belief we have, we're in the corporate learning space. So we're teaching adults who are busy professionals and all of that.
Yeah.
We've definitely structured our platform around human to human interaction. Our belief is that human to human interaction is necessary for people to actually want to learn and try
Mhm.
like hard, because you have to try,
Right.
put in the effort to learn. And
Right.
so our emphasis has been around how can AI create incredible human-to-human experience and facilitate that versus can AI replace the
Right.
human person and you end up just learning from AI, which I think could be useful in specific aspects. I'm not saying there's no application for it, but I think
Mhm.
I question its like super broad applicability in learning. So anyways, that's how we think about it. Now, in terms of specifically what are ways in which we're using AI in our platform, there are really three different ways.
Mhm.
The first one that we're doing now is we are in our group learning experiences where they go through lots of different activity types, and we have dozens of activity types that are enabled on our platform. One of them is interacting directly with an AI chatbot that's integrated on our platform and really
Right.
teaching people how to use it to push their thinking. And also part of it is also driving Gen AI adoption, which is what a lot of enterprises are struggling with. So we're teaching people how
Right.
to use AI, how to leverage AI to do better complex thinking and so on. So that's one way we're doing it. The second one is we're thinking a lot about how can we leverage AI to facilitate really dynamic interactions, almost like a facilitator.
Yeah.
But I think the UX and UI of that is really critical. So it maintains the human essence of the dynamic. And that's
Right.
something out there we're still in the early days of experimenting and trying to figure out the right way to enable that.
Right.
And then the third piece is it's pretty widely used in a lot of places, faster content generation
Right.
through AI. We obviously need to build a lot of activities on our platform using different experts' content, and
Mhm.
AI is helping us cut down the amount of time it's needed to create content.
Love it. What it sounds like to me is that it's instead of you focus on the one-on-one learning thing, you're really focused on more of the social aspect of the group learning mastermind type format. So I think that's an important distinction, is that I think AI from a one-on-one learning perspective is going to dramatically change things just because of how you're able to do things. For example, I keep thinking at some point it's going to be last week of the company who launched a streaming service that you could put in a prompt and then create a anime cartoon-ish movie. And like that will come with all things. And I keep thinking it'd be cool if you could do the same thing with learning and say, like the Matrix without plugging in, but you can say, hey,
Yeah,
teach
yeah.
me Kung Fu, and then it just builds out this thing for you as a one-on-one learning thing. But from a group perspective, like it's a little bit different because you obviously you have a bunch of other humans in the mix of what you're ever trying to learn, which is where your platform, I think, shines. So curious then, I'd love to have you from, how do I say this? Let's dive in because this is your unique guest because you have this learning background I really want to tap into, not only with your platform, but just in general with learning. Do you feel or do you think that AI will, I don't know what the right word is. You think any part of human learning will change as a result of AI?
That's really interesting. I really hard to predict. I think the question that I have is I almost want to frame it as how deep of a bond are humans able to form with AI? Can AI really approximate human connection? I think that's, to me, that's the question that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of, so the reason why is learning is like on the Maslow's hierarchy, like near the top. Like people, there's a lot of other things people are much more
Right.
motivated to care about.
Right.
And one of the drivers of things that make people do things that are high on the Maslow's hierarchy, like longer term benefits and so on, is more human related, I feel, motivated by like kind of social pressures and so on. And I think to the extent that AI can really like connect with humans and bring that level of like human motivation, I think it could
Mhm.
be, it could truly change how people learn. And actually, to your point, like maybe people will learn much more one-on-one with AI. Now, I think that's one where today I have a fundamental skepticism of it, that I can imagine like fringes of population, let's say 5 to 10%, really being able to really engage with AI and like in earnest and learn from it. But I have doubt that the majority of human population will prefer or be as engaged talking to an AI as a human
Mhm.
time soon. It
Yeah.
just feels a little bit against biology.
Yeah. You know, I keep thinking of, like, I'm inspired by the Marvel movies. So I keep thinking about Jarvis with Iron Man. And I just
Yeah.
keep thinking about how if you had a Jarvis level type of AI that was capable of to be that smart and conversational and all that thing, I just think like, how would that impact kids when they're learning or professionals in the learning space? You have this co-pilot that literally can understand everything. You're just fine to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
Would that help you learn, or is it more about the creation process, which is also a learning process? But I'm just curious, do you see things going that direction? And like with, for example, your own platform, do you see the world where you have almost like an AI avatar host that's like guiding people through the learning process, kind of like a facilitator would in real life? Do you see that kind of thing happening?
It's the direction we that certainly think about as a possible
Yeah.
like sort of R&D in the second piece of AI application I mentioned before. It's a really interesting and important question. I think there's a risk there, I would say, which is the analogy I would make is what happened when GPS got introduced? We all became incredibly stupid on the road. Like we can't navigate the roads ourselves. Like you become over
Right.
reliant on the tool. You abdicate your thinking in that one domain. In the past, the tools that we introduced were pretty niche and specific. And actually, okay, I'm okay abdicating my mental space to this because I'm going to focus on something broader.
Hmm.
AI is a bit interesting because it's the amount of things it can do is like very wide, in fact. And human brain takes actually a pretty long time to learn and master a skill, right? So the risk is, okay, you have a Jarvis. Is Jarvis enabling you to really do better? Or are you going to be so over reliant on it you never even build a judgment yourself? When do you know that Jarvis is telling you a great insight versus a good insight versus a crappy insight? if you never
Right.
have to do it yourself. I think a
Right.
lot of people are grappling with this challenge. Will we collectively become stupider as a species? To be
It's a
to
good
be
question.
a bit crude, but I think that is the question that's being posed by a lot of people, and I do really think and worry about that.
Mhm.
And in a way, we're building a lot of our platform to tackle that problem, which is okay, even for example, even in sales, like revenue enablement, like you
Right.
often do sales workshops and you introduce like a framework or a mental model. And then people need to learn that, and then they go practice it maybe with each other, and then go practice it with real clients. And over time, you
Right.
get. And what is really key is you first need to build and conceptualize a mental model of what great looks like.
Hmm.
So you can tell the difference between a bad discovery call and a great discovery call, because great's supposed to look like this. And so we think a lot about how do we effectively give people mental models and the judgment they need, such that when they have AI with them, they can actually use it for great stuff versus being just reliant on it.
Bring up a lot of good points. And one thing I wanted to tap into you with was just like, I keep telling people, I think the two skills that will erupt as a result of AI are very human, which are critical thinking and creative thinking. Because you have to be creative to think in expanse of all the things you can do. But when I take students through the academy, the thing I always tell them is you have to be super critical and put yourself into editor mind, like a newspaper. You got to be the editor of all the stuff because you're not the one creating, but you're the one filtering the stuff.
Mm.
Um, so I'm just curious, like in your both as a CEO with your developing the products that your team's developing for people to learn, all this other stuff, like how do you approach that? I guess you could say trust factor or the critical factor around AI to make sure people are like aware that, like how are you mitigating that exact same thing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And right now we're doing what I saw work best in places I work, especially
Hmm.
at McKinsey. They have this thing called the apprenticeship culture.
Yeah.
Uh, and the way actually, there are different components to it, but the one thing that's from that I think is relevant here is the way that
Mhm.
the organization works is that on a given team, you have like that when you have a client service, you have different levels of McKinsey consultants serving a client, right?
Right.
Have sort of the new grads that are the workhorse doing a lot of the analysis, but then it's layered with at the very top, like senior partners or partners who've been at the company for a long time. There's a lot of discussions around is that an effective model. One thing that I think is very effective about that model is there's someone who's seen far more patterns across more clients and across the years that's holding the bar on what great looks like, and
Right.
basically say, no, this is like not good enough, or no, this is too basic, or no, this has been done. Like this is right, or this is more likely to be the right answer. So go dig here. And the way I think about it in our company is we have to have different people like inside the company across function who's holding that bar, who
Hmm.
can tell the difference between, no, like I can tell this was written by ChatGPT and it's way too generic, to no, this is an insightful thing. We should push on this.
Right.
And yeah, right now it's through this kind of some human level judgment on what great looks like,
Hmm.
and pulling the difference between that and what is being generated by the team using AI or not using AI is the way
Yeah.
I think about it. Now, there may be other ways, but haven't yet necessarily come into that.
Haven't tapped into it. You will. I'm sure you will. So
Yeah.
I have this one of the things I have is a nonsensical framework I call LOPAFT. And the second step in LOPAFT is observing what good looks like.
Mm,
And it's amazing how so many companies I work with, from startups to whatever,
mm,
have a really hard time identifying for sales rep, customer success, for whatever, what that looks like, just because they sometimes don't know. And that's one of the dangers I see with AI is that when people get results back, like when you have someone who's just fresh out of college, and if they were somewhat decent at AI, they could probably get to a half decent result in whatever. So if I ask someone for an onboarding plan and they have
Yeah,
never done onboarding before, they could probably do an okay job with it with AI just because if they knew AI.
yeah,
But if they came to that plan with me as an enabler who's done it for years, I could say, nope, that's not going to work, not going to work, not going to work. And it changes things. But me as an AI and experienced person,
mm,
I know how to push the AI to get me to where I need to go because I know what that looks like.
yeah,
And funny enough, like I think that combo of experience and AI, like what I'm seeing right now is that people are either experienced, they're not doing AI, or they're not experienced and then using AI. That is that middle ground that needs to happen. Do you ever see a world where AI will have the ability to identify that and be able to critique that and say, based on whatever research or whatever expert source, this isn't good enough or something like that? Does that make sense?
yeah. I think that's where a lot of fundamental AI companies are trying to do. Like, when I say fundamental AI companies, like AI companies that are building the AI models,
Yeah.
what I know is that there's a lot of push to train AI models on true world-class experts. Now, that's really hard because these experts are very expensive and
Right.
scarce. But
Right.
ultimately, AI model performs as well as whoever's trained it. So I
Right.
know there's a lot of push right now to get better, more skilled people to be
Hmm.
training different niche sort of parts of industries and
Yeah.
domain. And as that happens, maybe the things that AI gives you will be of higher quality. So if you have an optimistic view, you would say, okay, we're gonna get better and better at this. And like if a new grad came in and used AI,
Hmm.
they are able to get to not a 40 to 50% answer, but like an 80% answer. And so then we start with an 80% answer, and then we are able to push it to something really great going forward.
Yeah.
Um, Now, there's still the question of, okay, are we all going to be like, oh, 80% answer is fine? In most cases, it is.
Hmm.
And so that sounds like a good thing, except, okay, then over time, before everyone's 80% is good, so you turn off your brain. Just
Right.
use what AI did. If you have an entire generation that's accustomed to, let's just turn off my brain, AI is giving me an 80% answer, that's good enough, and let's go for it. Nobody ever gets to the point where they can say 80%, okay, this is what 100 looks like, and this is the gap. And then
Yeah.
what happens to the world, right? That's a mental exercise I think people are doing.
Yeah. I've been working with some different enablement professionals around creating some sort of models for enablement as a profession. And using AI with it has been fascinating. And I feel like it's more like a companion to me versus a replacement of me, or I'm relying on it to do something for me. I'm more like tweaking it and moving it. And so I've been able to create things that I haven't ever been able to conceptualize. It's like Mid-Journey. I always want to be a comic book artist. I am a horrible painter slash drawer, but now I'm creating art that I've never been able to do before because I have that tool to do it. It's the same thing with this, where it's conceptualizing all these things in my brain that I've never been able to put into form, which I think is just awesome.
By the way, I
Um,
would say, one thing I would say is I actually think sales and enablement is one of the areas that's more promising in
yeah,
using AI and not falling into this trap that I'm talking about.
yeah,
The reason why is because sales is a very honest discipline.
right,
You have a very quick feedback to is what you're doing good or bad. Are prospects responding to your emails? Like, are you getting on the call and closing deals? The linkage between learning and then behavior and an outcome is so tight
hmm,
that you can't cheat around it. I think
yeah,
this risk is a lot higher when you can cheat around it. Like actually, so in the Mid-Journey example you gave,
yeah,
I that's a little bit maybe more vague. I guess it depends on what the outcome is.
right.
Because you
It's just
imagine
art.
you create something and people are
Yeah,
like, I think it's good. Like I personally don't have a very artistic sort of high
right.
standard. So I'm like, this is great. And it's almost no, that's terrible. But I
Yeah,
don't know. And so I'm like, so I think it depends on the discipline, but at
yeah.
least with sales and enablement, I do think it's quite promising.
I'm gonna go back a little bit. You said one of the three things you do is you use your platform to go into corporate environments to help with Gen AI education, correct?
Yeah.
I'm curious, like status right now, because I know what I hear from people on my side of things, but I'd love to hear from you. What are you seeing as consistent patterns of companies trying to adopt AI and what's getting in their way, and how do you suggest overcoming that?
Yeah. Yeah. What we consistently hear is okay, we bought an enterprise license to, I don't know, ChatGPT, or we
Right.
rolled out Copilot. 5% of people are using it. The rest don't seem to care. Or tried it once, it gave mediocre output, and they're like, this is enough
Right.
for me, and stopped. And people say this is a change management problem. The technology is
Right.
actually pretty easy to roll out, depending on the application. So some of the applications of AI requires really tight integration with data and security and
Right.
process engineering, all of that. But some of the basic like ChatGPT like tool is relatively easy to roll out. But the adoption is crawling at most companies. And
Right.
so how do I think about that? I think about that as, okay, the fundamental behavior and usage and approach to work has to be different. And so you have to elevate people's mindset, behaviors, and skills all at the same time. And so the way we're approaching it on our platform is, okay, we are going to do that by getting people to come together and talk about AI in groups and literally practice using AI together as a group in kind of a delightful way, and help them familiarize themselves with it so that it doesn't feel like this like foreign tool, but it's something, it basically, right now, the step to I'm not using AI to using AI is like too big. So people are not making the jump. And we're creating
Right.
the staircase to the point at which they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna now try AI for this one thing. Oh, it worked. Okay, let me try for this other thing. And they embark on the journey to using it more in their work.
Your McKinsey background is so intriguing to me. So, like with change management, since that's a lot of what I know McKinsey does,
Yeah.
do you feel like, I don't know, for me, I'm just like, as an enabler, I do a lot of tool enablement, which is all about adoption and change management of a whatever tool, whether it's Salesforce or whatever tool it might be. Do you feel like there's anything unique around AI that you do differently opposed to any other tool? Besides obviously the knowledge, but the fundamental principles of it, is there anything you do differently?
Interesting. Versus rolling out a different tool, you're saying.
Yeah, whatever the tool, it's not AI.
The thing that seems to be a real struggle right now is that usually when you roll out a tool inside a company, it's very use case specific. The tool is built for a very specific purpose.
Right.
It doesn't start from this question of where should I use it? There's a little bit of,
Right.
you have a hammer and trying to find just like whatever that
Smacking
analogy.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smacking everything. That's like
Yeah.
what's going on. So I think with this one, generally there's people thinking around when should I use it? That's a really big question that I haven't seen it happen as much with other rollout of tools,
Right.
or who should use it. Because it's kind
Right.
of okay, like anyone can, the company can use it. Okay, that's like kind of vague, right?
Right.
And so, anyways, I think that is a different challenge I'm seeing with AI than other things.
And which to me, that's fundamental. Like, when do I use this? How do I use this? Who's supposed to be using this?
Yeah.
How do I know if it's good or not? I read this interesting stat that said that almost half of the users who sign up for ChatGPT cancel the next month
Hmm.
because they can't get the results they're trying for, because this is a whole new world that we've never been trained on. And right now, like, there's no formal, if anyone from OpenAI is listening, which I doubt, but if they are, like, there's no formal training from OpenAI about how to use this stuff. There's some feedback and some research papers, but there's no like, here, take this course. I guess Microsoft has some things, and so does Google. There's no formal level of saying some national level doctorate board of this is AI. There's nothing like that. So it's super interesting right now. It's a wild west in a lot of ways. So from your point of view, and I know we're almost done with time, I want to make sure I'm aware of what your time frame, but what are you most excited about specifically for your platform? What, I know in the AI world, 6 months is like lifetime, but in the next 6 months to a year, what are the things you're excited about to bring into the whole learning process with your tool?
Right now in our tool, I think what I'm most excited about with the AI trends is the ability to really elevate practice, feedback, and application with AI.
Cool.
One of the things that drives learner engagement on our platform is when they feel like the content and the thing that's being delivered is really fit for their role and their day-to-day.
Yeah.
And that is a delicate balance. If you roll the sales training workshop, if you have a specific content, it could work in, I don't know, B2B SaaS company. That same content is not going to work for a manufacturing, like door-to-door sales company, for instance.
Right.
And like AI gives you a way to tailor the experience at a much lower cost.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sounds pretty exciting to me. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
I love it, man. I'm really, really excited to see what you guys come up with because the platform by itself outside of AI is just freaking cool. That's coming from a guy who's ran remote stuff and in-person things for a decade. So I'm really excited to see where you guys are going. Defined you, sparkwise.co, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, good. What's the best way, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
Just if you come to the website, there's ways to contact us.
Yeah.
Alternatively, I guess you can just get to me, vince@sparkwise.co.
There you
And
go.
if they mention your name and say, "Hey, I heard through you," make sure to give them VIP service.
Yeah. Give him the Coach K service. That'll be good. Vince, like I said before, it's been a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm really excited about your tech and where you guys are going. So I just want to tell you thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, man.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more.